After my husband stranded me at a bus stop with no cash, a blind woman said, "Pretend to be my granddaughter, my driver is coming. Your husband will regret this. I own this entire city." Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. The sound of the car door slamming shut echoed like a gunshot in the empty street. I stood there, freezing, my hands trembling not just from the biting wind, but from a humiliation so deep it felt like it was burning my skin. I watched the taillights of our sedan, my sedan, the one I paid the insurance on, fade into the distance, turning a corner and disappearing, leaving me surrounded by the encroaching shadows of the district locals called the Bottoms. Grant didn't just leave me. He discarded me. He threw me out like a fast food wrapper he was done with. And the last thing he said, shouting through the passenger window as he peeled away, was ringing in my ears. He had said, "Figure it out, Harper. Consider this a lesson in economics. Maybe when you walk home, you'll learn the value of $1." I stared at the cracked pavement where my purse had landed. It was open, spilling its contents onto the dirty concrete. I knelt, my knees scraping against the grit, and scrambled to gather my things. Lipstick. A pack of tissues. My library ID. But as my fingers dug frantically through the leather bag, my stomach dropped. My wallet was gone. My phone was gone. He had taken them. He had actually taken my means of survival before he kicked me out. It was a Tuesday. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. I closed my eyes, trying to stop the world from spinning. How did it come to this? Just 2 hours ago, I was in our kitchen, making coffee. The fight had started over a piece of paper. A receipt. Grant had been slamming drawers, a sign I had learned to dread over our 5 years of marriage. When the drawers slammed, it meant I was about to be put on trial. He had stormed into the kitchen and thrown the crumpled receipt at my chest. It was for $80. $80 for a heated blanket and some vitamins for my mother, who was recovering from hip surgery. "You want to explain this?" Grant had hissed, his face inches from mine. "We're trying to save for the business expansion, Harper. And you're out here throwing money away on, what is this? Vitamins?" "It's for my mom," I had whispered, shrinking back against the counter. "She's in pain, Grant. And it's my money. I picked up extra shifts at the library specifically for this." "It is our money," he had roared, striking the counter with his fist. "There is no your money in this marriage. There is only my management of our funds. You are irresponsible. You are a child. You don't understand how the real world works, Harper. You think money grows on trees?" I tried to argue. I tried to tell him that I hadn't bought new clothes in 2 years, that I clipped coupons until my fingers were stained with ink, that I was the one who managed the grocery budget down to the penny. But Grant didn't want to hear it. He wanted to punish. He told me to get in the car, that we were going to my mother's house to return the junk. But we never went to my mother's house. He drove south. He drove past the manicured lawns of our suburb, past the city center, and into the industrial wasteland where the streetlights were broken and the windows were boarded up. And now, here I was. Abandoned. I stood up, clutching my empty purse to my chest. The sun was setting fast, painting the sky in bruises of purple and black. The street was deserted, save for a liquor store across the way with bars on the windows. A cold wind whipped down the avenue, cutting through my thin cardigan. I patted my pockets again, a desperate reflex, hoping maybe he had left my phone. Nothing. Fear began to crawl up my throat. I was 10 miles from home. I had no cash. No credit cards. No way to call a taxi or a friend. And Grant knew that. He knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't just an argument, this was a calculated act of cruelty. He wanted me to be terrified. He wanted me to crawl back to him, begging for forgiveness for buying my sick mother a blanket. A group of young men turned the corner down the block, their voices loud and aggressive. I shrank back toward the bus stop bench, trying to make myself invisible. The bench was metal, graffiti-covered, and freezing. I sat down, wrapping my arms around myself, trying to stop the shaking. What was I going to do? Walk? In this neighborhood, dressed like a suburban housewife? I would be a target before I made it 3 blocks. Wait for a bus? I couldn't pay the fare. Would the driver take pity on me? Or would he kick me off too? Tears, hot and angry, pricked my eyes. I refused to let them fall. Grant wanted me to cry. He was probably laughing right now, imagining me sobbing on this curb. I bit my lip until I tasted iron. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. But as the streetlights flickered on, only one of them actually working, casting a sickly yellow pool of light on the sidewalk, the reality set in. I wasn't just being punished. I was in danger. Real, physical danger. A car slowed down as it passed, the driver leering at me through the window, and my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. He moved on, but the next one might not. I was 35 years old, a college graduate, a woman who used to have dreams and a backbone. And now I was sitting in the gutter because my husband decided I needed a lesson. I buried my face in my hands, the exhaustion washing over me. Please, I whispered to the empty air. Please, somebody help me. I didn't expect an answer. But then, I heard a rhythmic tapping sound. Tap. 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 I looked up. Emerging from the shadows, walking slowly but with a strange, deliberate grace, was an elderly woman. She wore a heavy wool coat that looked out of place among the grime of the street, and dark, oversized sunglasses covered her eyes. In her hand, she held a white cane, sweeping it back and forth across the cracked pavement. She stopped right in front of the bench. She didn't look at me, she couldn't, but she turned her head slightly, as if listening to the frequency of my breathing. This bench is usually occupied by a gentleman named Rusty who smells of gin, the woman said. Her voice was crisp, authoritative, like a retired schoolteacher or a judge. You do not smell like gin. You smell like vanilla and sheer terror. She sat down next to me, leaving a polite distance. She stared straight ahead into the darkness. I'm sorry, I managed to say, my voice cracking. I can leave. I didn't mean to take your seat. Sit down, child, she commanded gently. I am waiting for my ride. And by the sound of your heart rate, which I can hear from here, you are in no condition to go anywhere. I stayed seated because my legs refused to hold me up any longer. There was something surreal about the woman sitting next to me. In a neighborhood where everything was broken, dirty, or loud, she was composed, almost statuesque. Her silver hair was pulled back in an elegant bun, and despite the chill, she sat with a straight spine, her hands resting calmly on the handle of her cane. I'm not usually this pathetic, I blurted out. It was a strange thing to say to a stranger, but the silence felt heavy, and I felt the need to defend my dignity, even if I had very little left. I have a job. I have a home. You don't need to explain yourself to me, she said, her head tilting slightly toward the sound of a distant siren. The city is full of stories. Most of them are tragic. Some are boring. Yours feels sharp. Like a fresh cut. I wiped my eyes with the sleeve of my cardigan. My husband, I whispered. The word felt like acid on my tongue. He dropped me off here. He took my phone and my money. He said I needed to learn a lesson about responsibility. The woman didn't gasp. She didn't offer empty platitudes like, oh, poor dear. Instead, her lips pressed into a thin, hard line. She turned her face fully toward me, her dark glasses reflecting the single working streetlight. A lesson, she repeated. The word dripped with disdain. And what lesson, pray tell, does a man think he can teach a woman by leaving her defenseless in the dark? That I'm nothing without him, I said, the truth of it hitting me harder than the cold wind. That he controls the money, so he controls me. I bought a blanket for my sick mother. That was my crime. $80. The woman let out a short, sharp breath that might have been a laugh if it wasn't so devoid of humor. $80. Men have killed for less, and men have ruined empires for less. But to abandon his wife? That is the mark of a coward. A small, insignificant man who feels big only when he makes someone else feel small. I looked at her, really looked at her. You shouldn't be here, I said, my protective instincts flaring up despite my own situation. It's not safe. This isn't a good neighborhood. I know exactly where we are, she said calmly. I know the cracks in this sidewalk better than I know the lines on my own face. People assume that because I cannot see, I am unaware. But darkness has its own geography, my dear. And I am quite comfortable in it. Are you? No, I admitted. I'm terrified. Good. Fear is useful. Fear keeps you alert. Panic is what kills you. Do not panic. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. It was embroidered with silk thread. She held it out to me. Wipe your face. Do not let the world see you crumble. Especially not a world built by men like your husband. I took the handkerchief. It smelled of lavender and old paper. I'm Harper, I said. Eleanor, she replied. And I believe, Harper, that your luck is about to change. Or perhaps, it is simply time to balance the scales. I don't know how to get home, I confessed, the shame washing over me again. He has my keys. He has everything. I don't even have a dime to call my mother. Home, Eleanor mused. Is it a home if you are treated like a trespasser in it? Is it a home if you have to ask permission to care for the woman who gave you birth? Her question hung in the air, unanswerable. I thought about the house Grant and I lived in. The perfectly decorated living room where I wasn't allowed to move the coasters. The office I wasn't allowed to enter. The joint bank account that I deposited money into but had to ask permission to withdraw from. No, I whispered. It's not. Then we shall find you a new definition of home. Eleanor tapped her cane twice on the pavement. Tell me, Harper. If you had the power right now, the absolute power to do anything, what would you do to the man who left you here? I hesitated. I was raised to be forgiving. To be the bigger person. But sitting there in the cold, feeling the raw scrape on my knee and the hollow ache in my chest, something in me snapped. A small, dark flame ignited in my gut. I would make him feel this, I said, my voice trembling with a new kind of energy. I would make him feel small. I would make him realize that I am not an accessory he can put on a shelf. I would take back everything he thinks he owns. Eleanor smiled. It was a wolfish smile, showing perfect teeth. Excellent answer. Mercy is a virtue, Harper, but justice is a necessity. And tonight, I am in the mood for justice. Just then, a pair of headlights swept across us. But these weren't the yellow, dim lights of the beat-up sedans that usually prowled the street. These were crisp, blue-white LED beams that cut through the gloom like lasers. A long, sleek black vehicle purred to a stop in front of the bus stop. It was a limousine. Not a rental, but a private, pristine machine that looked like it cost more than the entire block combined. The back window rolled down. A warm breeze escaped from the interior. Mrs. Wilmington, a deep voice called from the driver's seat. I apologize for the delay. Traffic on the bridge was a nightmare. Eleanor stood up. She didn't look like a frail old woman anymore. She looked like a queen preparing to hold court. She extended her hand toward me. "Come, Harper," she said. "The bus isn't coming. But destiny has arrived." I stared at the black limousine, my brain struggling to process the visual data. It was like seeing a spaceship land in a swamp. The car was immaculate, the black paint so deep it looked like a void. A driver in a sharp suit, Arthur, stepped out and moved with the efficiency of a bodyguard, opening the rear door for Eleanor. "Mrs. Wilmington," I stammered, staying glued to the bench. I can't. I can't just get in a car with you. I don't want to impose. I just need to borrow a phone, maybe call the police." Eleanor paused, one hand on the roof of the car. She turned back to me, her expression stern. "The police? And tell them what? That your husband was mean to you? Unless he hit you, they will call it a domestic dispute and tell you to work it out. They might drive you home, back to the man who threw you out. Is that what you want? To knock on his door and ask to be let back in?" The thought made my stomach churn. Going back tonight would mean admitting defeat. It would mean accepting that he had the right to treat me this way. "No," I said softly. "Then get in the car," Eleanor commanded. "I am not offering you charity, Harper. I am offering you an alliance. But I do not wait. The wind is cold, and my patience is thin." I looked at the dark street behind me, then at the warm, inviting leather interior of the car. I looked at Arthur, who stood holding the door with a respectful, non-threatening posture. Then I looked at Eleanor. Even blind, she radiated a sense of safety I hadn't felt in years. I stood up and walked toward the car. "Okay." As I slid onto the plush leather seat, the warmth of the climate control wrapped around me like a blanket. It smelled of expensive cedar and fresh rain. Eleanor settled in beside me, and Arthur closed the door, shutting out the noise and the grit of the bottoms instantly. The silence was absolute, heavy with luxury. "Home, Arthur," Eleanor said. "And call Margaret. Tell her we have a guest. We will need the blue suite prepared." "Yes, ma'am," Arthur replied, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror for a split second, kind, assessing, but silent. As the car glided forward, smoother than any vehicle I had ever been in, Eleanor pressed a button, and a glass partition slid up, separating us from the driver. She turned to me, removing her dark glasses. Her eyes were clouded, milky white, but they were intense. "Now," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "We have a drive ahead of us, and business to discuss. You said you wanted to make your husband realize his mistake. Did you mean it?" I'm angry," I said, my hands clenching in my lap. "But I don't have any power, Eleanor. Grant holds the mortgage, the accounts, the car titles. I signed a prenup. He made sure I have nothing." "You have nothing because you played by his rules," Eleanor said, waving a hand dismissively. "Grant. That is his name? A strong name for a weak man. Listen to me closely, Harper. In this city, people do not respect goodness. They respect leverage. They respect perception." She leaned closer. "I have a proposition for you. I am 78 years old. I have no children. My husband passed away 20 years ago, leaving me with an empire that I have tripled since his death. I have nieces and nephews, vultures mostly, waiting for me to die so they can pick the carcass clean. I despise them all." I listened, mesmerized. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because next week is the Wilmington Foundation Gala. It is the social event of the season. Every shark, every climber, every power-hungry socialite in the state will be there. Including, I suspect, men like your husband who wish to be close to money." "Grant loves those events," I admitted. "He's been trying to get an invite to the Wilmington Gala for years. He says it's where the real deals happen." Exactly, Eleanor smiled. Here is my plan. You are no longer Harper, the downtrodden wife who buys vitamins on a budget. Starting tonight, you are my grandniece. My favorite granddaughter, returned from, let's say, Switzerland. You are Alexandra. Alexandra? I repeated, the name feeling foreign on my tongue. I can't act, Eleanor. I'm a librarian. Librarians are the best actors, she countered. You spend your life surrounded by stories. You just need to inhabit a new one. I will give you the clothes, the jewelry, the backstory. You will attend the gala by my side. We will make sure your husband is there. And when he sees you, not the wife he discarded, but the heiress he can't touch, we will crush him. But why? I asked, tears springing to my eyes again. Why would you do this for a stranger you found at a bus stop? Eleanor sighed, and for a moment, she looked tired. She reached out and found my hand, her skin papery but warm. Because, my dear, 40 years ago, a man kicked me out of a car. It wasn't in the bottoms, it was in the snow. I didn't have anyone to pick me up. I had to walk. I lost 2 toes to frostbite and I lost the baby I was carrying. I gasped, covering my mouth. I promised myself then, Eleanor continued, her voice hardening like steel, that if I ever had the power, I would be the woman in the limousine for someone else. I would be the cavalry. So, Harper. Do we have a deal? Will you be my Alexandra? I looked down at my hands. They were raw, shaking, and empty. But inside, that small flame of anger was growing. Grant thought I was trash. He thought I was helpless. I looked up at Eleanor. Yes, I said. Let's teach him a lesson. The drive took 30 minutes, climbing up the winding roads of Hillcrest. As we ascended, the city lights fell away below us, a glittering carpet of indifference. We passed gates that looked like entrances to national parks, driveways lined with ancient oaks. This was old money. This was the kind of wealth Grant drooled over in magazines but never touched. When Arthur turned the limousine through a set of massive wrought iron gates, I held my breath. The Wilmington estate wasn't a house, it was a fortress of limestone and glass. Floodlights illuminated a fountain in the center of the circular driveway that was larger than my entire backyard. We're here, Eleanor said as the car came to a smooth halt. Arthur opened the door, and the cool mountain air hit me, smelling of pine and expensive landscaping. I stepped out, feeling woefully underdressed in my jeans and cheap cardigan. The front doors of the mansion, massive, double mahogany slabs, opened before we even reached the steps. A woman in a crisp black and white uniform stood there. She was older, with a kind face and eyes that had seen everything but judged nothing. "Welcome home, Mrs. Wilmington," she said. "Margaret, this is Harper," Eleanor said, taking Arthur's arm to navigate the steps. "She is family. She will be staying in the blue suite. And she is starving, freezing, and in need of a bath that is hotter than the sun." "Of course," Margaret said, smiling warmly at me. "Come right this way, dear. I've already started the water." Entering the foyer was like stepping into a museum. The ceiling soared 20 feet high, adorned with a crystal chandelier that scattered rainbows across the marble floor. There were paintings on the walls that looked like originals, maybe Monet, maybe Renoir. I felt small. I felt dirty. I felt like an imposter who was going to be kicked out the moment they realized I bought my shoes at a discount outlet. "Don't gawk, Harper," Eleanor called out, though she was walking ahead of me. "It's just a house. It's mostly for show. The plumbing is the only thing that truly matters." Margaret led me up a sweeping staircase, down a corridor lined with silk wallpaper, and opened a door at the end of the hall. "The blue suite," she announced. I stepped inside and nearly wept. The room was bigger than the entire ground floor of the house I shared with Grant. A king-sized bed with a velvet canopy dominated the center. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the city. But it was the bathroom that broke me. It was white marble, with a soaking tub deep enough to swim in, steam already rising from it, smelling of eucalyptus and rose. "There are fresh towels, a robe, and pajamas on the vanity," Margaret said gently. "I'll bring up a tray of food in 20 minutes. Pot roast and mashed potatoes. Mrs. Wilmington says it's comfort food night." "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick. "Thank you so much." When Margaret closed the door, I sank onto the floor of the bathroom. The luxury was overwhelming, but it was the contrast that hurt. I thought about the shower at home, the one that leaked, the one Grant refused to fix because contractors are thieves, so I had to shower with a bucket to catch the drip. I thought about the dinner I had planned to make tonight, leftover pasta because Grant had cut the grocery budget again. I stripped off my clothes, the clothes Grant hated, the clothes he called frumpy, and stepped into the tub. The hot water enveloped me, stinging my wind-chafed skin, then soothing it. I slid down until the water covered my ears, muffling the world. For the first time in 5 years, I was safe. Nobody was going to bang on the door and ask why I was taking so long. Nobody was going to check the water meter to scream about the bill. But as the heat soaked into my bones, the guilt crept in. It was a reflex, a programmed response. I shouldn't be here. This is too much. I don't deserve this. Grant's voice was in my head, insidious and cruel. "You're a leech, Harper. You take and you take." "No," I said aloud, my voice sounding strange underwater. I sat up, water cascading off me. "I am not a leech. I am a survivor." I scrubbed my skin with the loofah, scrubbing away the grime of the bottoms, scrubbing away the feeling of Grant's hand gripping my arm. I washed my hair with shampoo that smelled like heaven. When I stepped out and wrapped myself in the thickest, softest robe I had ever touched, I looked in the mirror. My eyes were red. My face was pale. But the woman staring back wasn't the terrified victim on the curb anymore. She was clean. She was angry. And she was in a castle. A knock at the door signaled the arrival of dinner. Margaret wheeled in a cart. The smell of roast beef and gravy made my stomach roar. I sat by the fire, yes, there was a gas fireplace in the bedroom, and ate until I was full. I lay back on the bed, sinking into the mattress. I was safe. But I knew this was just the eye of the storm. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, I had to become Alexandra. I tried to sleep, but the silence of the mansion was too heavy. It was a different kind of silence than home. At home, the silence was tense, a held breath before an explosion. Here, the silence was peaceful, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept replaying how I got to this point. How I became a woman with no access to her own money. It wasn't always like this. 3 years ago, I had savings. I had an inheritance. My mind drifted back to a rainy afternoon in November, 3 years ago. The memory was so vivid I could smell the cinnamon tea Beatrice, my mother-in-law, had brewed. We were sitting in her living room, a room cluttered with porcelain dolls that always seemed to be watching me. Grant was sitting next to her, holding her hand. It was always them against the world. "Harper, darling," Beatrice had said, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness that made my teeth ache. "We have a wonderful opportunity. A golden opportunity. But we need to move fast." Grant looked at me, his eyes shining with excitement. "It's the dealership location on Main, Harper. The owner is selling. If I can buy in as a partner now, I'll be set for life. We'll be set for life. No more scraping by. We're talking millions in 5 years." "That sounds great, Grant," I had said, genuinely happy for him. "So you're going to apply for the business loan?" Grant's face fell. He looked at his mother, then back at me, putting on his wounded puppy expression. "That's the problem, babe. My credit score took a hit from that student loan mix-up last year. The bank wants collateral. Substantial collateral. I felt the trap snap shut before I even saw the teeth. Collateral? Your parents' house, Beatrice said, cutting straight to the chase. My parents' house. The small, two-bedroom bungalow in the next town over. They had left it to me when they passed. It was currently rented out, the income going into a savings account I kept for emergencies and for my mom's care. It was the only thing I truly owned. No, I said, my heart pounding. I can't risk that house. That's my safety net. That's for Mom if her insurance runs out. Safety net? Grant stood up, his voice rising. Harper, don't you believe in me? I am your husband. I am trying to build a future for us, for our future children. And you're hoarding a house like a selfish child? I'm not hoarding it, I argued. It's sentimental. It's an asset sitting there doing nothing. Beatrice snapped, dropping the sweet act. Grant works 60 hours a week for you. He breaks his back. And you can't sign a piece of paper to help him achieve his dream? What kind of wife are you? I love you, Harper, Grant said, switching tactics immediately. He knelt in front of me, taking my hands. I promise, on my life, this is just a formality. The loan will be paid off in 2 years. We won't even touch the equity. It's just a signature. Please. Don't let me fail because you're scared. They wore me down. For 3 hours, they alternated between guilt, anger, and begging. They told me I was the reason Grant was stressed. They told me I was holding the family back. They told me that if I loved him, I would trust him. And I did. I loved him. I wanted to be the supportive wife. I wanted Beatrice to finally approve of me. So I signed. I sat in front of a notary the next day and signed the deed over as collateral for a business expansion loan. I signed a power of attorney allowing Grant to manage the funds related to the business. I remembered the look of triumph on Grant's face as the notary stamped the paper. It wasn't relief. It was victory. He hugged me, but his eyes were looking over my shoulder at his mother, winking. I didn't know then that I had just signed my own death warrant. I didn't know that the business expansion was a lie. Lying in the blue velvet darkness of Eleanor's guest room, a tear slid down my cheek into the pillow. That signature was the beginning of the end. Once he had the house, the dynamic changed. He didn't need to be nice to me anymore. He had the money. He started controlling my paycheck, saying we needed to be austere to pay back the loan faster. He cut my access to the accounts. He isolated me from my friends, saying we couldn't afford to go out. I was the frog in the pot, and he had turned up the heat so slowly I didn't realize I was boiling until today, when he kicked me out of the car. But the saddest part wasn't the money. It was the realization that he had planned it. He had spent 3 years systematically stripping me of my independence so that when he was done with me, I would have nowhere to go. You underestimated me, Grant, I whispered to the empty room. You took my money, but you forgot to take my memory. Morning came with a flood of sunshine through the French doors, waking me from a fitful sleep. For a second, I panicked, not recognizing the room, thinking I had overslept for work and Grant would be screaming. Then I saw the velvet canopy. I saw the robe on the chair. I remembered. A soft knock. Margaret entered with a tray of coffee and croissants. Mrs. Wilmington is waiting for you in the solarium. Her attorney, Patricia, is here. I dressed quickly in the clothes Margaret had left out, a pair of tailored slacks and a silk blouse that fit perfectly. I felt like I was wearing a costume, but the fabric felt like armor. I found Eleanor in a room made entirely of glass, filled with orchids. She was drinking tea, looking immaculate in a cream suit. Sitting opposite her was a sharp-eyed woman with a severe bob cut, tapping on a laptop. Good morning, Alexandra, Eleanor said, emphasizing the new name. Sleep well? Better than I expected, I said. Good morning. Harper, this is Patricia, Eleanor introduced. She is the sharpest shark in the legal ocean. I asked her to run a little background check on your husband and your financial situation. Patricia didn't smile. She just turned the laptop screen toward me. Mrs. Henderson, I understand you signed a power of attorney and collateral agreement 3 years ago? Yes, I said, sitting down. For the dealership expansion. There was no dealership expansion, Patricia said flatly. My blood ran cold. What? But he showed me the blueprints. He showed me the loan documents. Forgeries, Patricia said. Or rather, draft documents that were never filed. The loan was taken out, yes. A home equity line of credit against your parents' property for $150,000. But the money didn't go to the dealership's operating account. Where did it go? I asked, my voice trembling. Patricia clicked a key. A spreadsheet appeared. It went to a shell LLC called V-Stone Properties. And from there, it was used to purchase a condo in the Marina District. A luxury condo. V-Stone, I whispered. The name triggered a memory. A holiday card I had seen in Grant's briefcase once. From Vanessa Stone. His boss. The regional manager. Vanessa, I said. His boss. Patricia nodded. It appears so. The condo is registered in her name, but the down payment and the monthly mortgage payments come directly from the loan secured by your house. Essentially, Harper, you bought his mistress a condo. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the glass table to steady myself. I felt sick. Physically violently sick. I had been eating ramen noodles. I had been denying my mother proper care. I had been walking to work to save gas. All while he was taking my inheritance to buy a love nest for another woman. There's more, Patricia continued, merciless but necessary. The credit card debt? The bills he screamed at you about? They aren't for groceries. Look at these charges. The Ritz-Carlton. Tiffany's. A lease on a Porsche Cayman, not for him, for her. I looked at the screen. The dates matched perfectly with the nights he was working late. The weekends he was at conferences. He stole everything, I said, the realization settling in like a heavy stone. He didn't just spend it. He stole it. It is embezzlement and fraud, Patricia corrected. Since he used a power of attorney to benefit himself in a way that harmed the principal, that is a breach of fiduciary duty. It is a crime. We can put him in jail. No, Eleanor interrupted. Her voice was quiet, dangerous. Not yet. Jail is too easy. If he goes to jail now, he goes as a victim of a misunderstanding. He will declare bankruptcy, and Harper will never see a dime of her house money back. The bank will foreclose. So what do we do? I asked. I looked at Eleanor, feeling a fire ignite in my chest that was hotter than the shame. I want him to hurt. I want him to lose everything. He will, Eleanor said. But first, we have to let him think he has won. Grant is a narcissist. He craves validation. He wants to be seen as a big shot. That is why he is dying to come to my gala. Eleanor stood up and walked over to an orchid, touching the petals gently. Patricia has drafted the paperwork to freeze his assets, but we won't file it until the night of the gala. We will let him walk into that ballroom thinking he is king. We will let him see you, the heiress Alexandra, and he will want you because he is greedy. She turned to me. He abandoned Harper the librarian. But he will chase Alexandra the heiress. And when he catches her, the trap will snap shut. I looked at the spreadsheet one last time. I looked at the name Vanessa Stone. I remembered Grant throwing the $80 receipt at me. Do it, I said to Patricia. Prepare everything. But don't file it yet. I want to look him in the eye when his world burns. The next 3 days were a blur of transformation. Eleanor wasn't kidding when she said she would create a new person. It wasn't just about clothes, it was about armor. Stand up straight, Eleanor barked, tapping my shin with her cane. You are slouching. You walk like you are apologizing for taking up space. Harper apologizes. Alexandra owns the ground she walks on. We were in the dressing room, a space larger than a department store. A team of stylists, people Eleanor paid to be discreet, were working on me. They cut my hair, which had been long and limp, into a sharp, sophisticated lob that framed my jawline. They dyed it a rich, dark chocolate that made my eyes pop. Your husband, Eleanor lectured from her velvet armchair, relied on you being invisible. He relied on you being tired. When you are tired, you are compliant. Look in the mirror. I looked. The woman staring back was starting to look unfamiliar. The makeup artist had contoured my face, bringing out cheekbones I didn't know I had. What do you see? Eleanor asked. I see someone expensive, I said. No, Eleanor corrected. You see someone dangerous. Beauty is a tool, Harper. Men like Grant are simple creatures. They are attracted to shiny things, but they are terrified of things they cannot control. You need to be both. Then came the dress. Margaret brought it out on a hanger padded with silk. It was emerald green, a deep, vibrant jewel tone. It was velvet and silk, strapless, with a slit that went up to the thigh. Try it on, Eleanor commanded. I stepped into the dress. It fit like a second skin. It was heavy, expensive, and incredibly revealing compared to my usual cardigans. I stepped out onto the podium. Describe it to me, Eleanor said. It's green, I said. It shows a lot of leg. And my shoulders. Does it make you feel exposed? A little. Good. Use that. Grant made you feel small by criticizing your body, yes? By telling you that you were gaining weight, or that you looked frumpy? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. He told me I let myself go. That nobody else would want me. He lied, Eleanor said softly. He devalued the asset so nobody else would bid on it. It is a classic market manipulation tactic. But tonight, the asset is revalued. Tonight, the price has gone up, and he cannot afford it. She opened a velvet box on her lap. Inside lay a necklace that made me gasp audibly. Diamonds. Real, heavy diamonds in a cascading waterfall design. This, Eleanor said, is the Vanderbilt collection. Or close enough. Put it on. As Margaret clasped the necklace around my neck, the cold weight of the stones settled against my skin. I looked in the mirror again. The transformation was complete. Harper, the woman who cried over grocery coupons, was gone. In her place stood Alexandra. She looked tall. She looked wealthy. And in her eyes, there was a cold, hard glint that looked exactly like revenge. How do I act? I asked, panic fluttering in my chest for a moment. What if he recognizes my voice? What if I say something wrong? He won't recognize you because he never truly saw you, Eleanor said. He saw utility. An appliance. And as for your voice, speak less. Listen more. When you speak, speak slowly. Powerful people do not rush. They know the world will wait for them. She stood up and walked over to me, placing her hands on my shoulders. You are not acting, Harper. You are revealing the part of you that survived the bus stop. The part of you that survived the cold. That woman is tough. That woman is Alexandra. I took a deep breath, channeling the cold wind of the bottoms, the anger of the betrayal, the shock of the theft. I let it all crystallize into a diamond-hard resolve in my chest. I'm ready, I said. And this time, I didn't sound like Harper at all. The night before the gala, I sat on the balcony of the Blue Suite, wrapped in cashmere, watching the moon rise. My phone, the new one Eleanor had given me, sat on the table. It was silent. Grant hadn't tried to call my old number, which I had forwarded to a voicemail box, in 2 days. He assumed I was gone. Or dead. And he didn't care. The silence brought back the worst memory of all. The one I had buried deepest. It was 6 months ago. Our 5th anniversary. I had saved for months to cook a special dinner. Filet mignon. Expensive wine. I had dressed up in a black dress I bought at a thrift store but tailored myself. I lit candles. I waited. Grant came home at 9 p.m. He smelled of whiskey and that cloying, floral perfume, Vanessa's perfume, though I didn't know the name then. He took one look at the table, at the cold steak, at the candles burning low, and he laughed. A cruel, barking laugh. "What is this?" he asked, throwing his keys on the counter. "A shrine?" "It's our anniversary, Grant," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. 5 years. "Anniversary," he sneered. "Right. 5 years of you dragging me down." He walked over to the table. I thought he was going to sit down. Instead, he grabbed the edge of the tablecloth and yanked. Dishes crashed to the floor. The wine bottle shattered, spraying red liquid across the beige carpet like blood. The candles rolled, sputtering out in the mess. I screamed. I couldn't help it. "Grant! What are you doing?" He turned on me, his eyes wild. He grabbed my shoulders, hard. His fingers dug into my flesh, leaving bruises I would hide for weeks. He shook me. "Stop trying so hard," he screamed in my face. Spittle hit my cheek. "You are pathetic, Harper. You think a steak fixes the fact that you are a boring, useless anchor around my neck? I am out there making deals with real players, and I come home to this. To you?" He shoved me backward. I stumbled and fell onto the glass shards. I cut my hand. I stared up at him, bleeding, terrified. "Clean this up," he said, adjusting his tie. "I'm going out. I have a meeting with Vanessa. Someone who actually understands business." He walked out. He stepped over the food, over the glass, over me. He didn't look back. I lay there on the floor for an hour, weeping into the ruined carpet. That was the night I should have left. That was the night I knew, deep down, that he hated me. But I stayed. Why? Because I believed him. I believed I was useless. I believed I was lucky he kept me around. I believed the gaslighting. He made me believe I was nothing, I whispered to the moon, tightening my grip on the cashmere shawl. But the spreadsheet Patricia showed me changed the memory. He wasn't just cruel that night. He was guilty. He had probably just come from buying Vanessa a diamond bracelet with my money, and seeing me trying to be a good wife made him feel, what? Guilt? No. Annoyance. I was an inconvenience to his fantasy life. He physically hurt me. He emotionally destroyed me. And he financially robbed me. The triple threat. I looked at my hand. A faint white scar on my palm from the wineglass was still there. I traced it with my finger. Never again, I swore. Tomorrow night, at the gala, I wouldn't be the wife on the floor cleaning up the mess. I would be the disaster happening to him. I went back inside and looked at the emerald dress hanging on the door. It looked like the skin of a snake. A venomous, beautiful snake. Grant liked snakes. He was about to get bit by one. I turned off the light and went to bed. For the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. I didn't need to dream. The reality I was about to create was going to be better than any dream, and for Grant, it was going to be a living nightmare. The trap was set, and just as Eleanor predicted, the rat couldn't resist the cheese. I wasn't there to see it, of course, but Arthur, Eleanor's driver, had eyes everywhere. He had parked down the street from the dealership, watching through the tinted windows of a nondescript sedan. He told me later exactly how it went down. It was Wednesday morning. Grant was sitting in his glass-walled office, the office he bragged about, the one that looked out over the lot of unsold cars. He was stressed. I knew that look. He was probably juggling creditors, moving money from one account to another to cover the massive hole he had dug with his embezzlement. He was probably wondering where his cash cow, me, had disappeared to. Then, the courier arrived. Not the mailman. A private courier in a uniform, carrying a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with gold wax. Arthur said Grant opened it like it was a holy relic. The invitation to the Wilmington Foundation annual gala. I could imagine the rush of dopamine hitting his brain. To Grant, this wasn't just a party. This was validation. This was the universe telling him that despite the fraud, despite the theft, despite abandoning his wife in a slum, he was special. He belonged with the elite. He called Vanessa immediately. I knew he would. Later that afternoon, thanks to the spyware Patricia had legally authorized on the company phones, since the company was technically using funds secured by my property, we heard the call. "Babe, you are not going to believe this," Grant's voice was triumphant, almost manic. "We got in. The Wilmington Gala. The old bat finally invited me." "Are you serious?" Vanessa's voice was shrill with excitement. "Grant, that's huge. That's where the venture capital guys hang out. If we can land an investor there, we can pay off the bridge loan before anyone notices." "Exactly," Grant said. "It's a sign, Ness. We're untouchable. I told you everything would work out." "But what about her?" Vanessa asked, her voice dropping a little. "Any news?" "Who? Harper?" Grant laughed. It was a cold, dismissive sound that made my blood boil as I listened to the recording in Eleanor's study. "Not a peep. She's probably crying at her mother's house, too ashamed to call. Or maybe she's still wandering around the bottoms. Who cares? She's the past, Ness. You and I, walking into the Wilmington Gala? That's the future." "I need a dress," Vanessa said instantly. "I saw this red Valentino." "Buy it," Grant said. "Put it on the company card. We need to look like we own the place." I sat there in the study, staring at the speaker. He was spending more of my money to dress his mistress for a party where he planned to celebrate his success. "He calls you the past," Eleanor said, sipping her tea. She didn't look angry, she looked satisfied. "He has no idea that the past is about to walk up and slap him in the face." "He's going to bring her," I said, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. "I have to face both of them." "Good," Eleanor said firmly. "Let him parade her around. Let him show the world exactly who he is. A man who brings his mistress to a charity gala while his wife is missing is a man who has lost all sense of caution. Arrogance, Harper, is a much better anesthetic than alcohol. He will be numb to the danger until the knife is already in." That night, I lay in the blue suite, visualizing the encounter. I practiced my breathing. I practiced my walk. I wasn't Harper anymore. Harper would have been crushed by that phone call. Harper would have cried because her husband didn't care if she was dead or alive. But Alexandra? Alexandra thought it was pathetic. Alexandra thought Grant sounded like a desperate little boy playing dress-up in his father's suit. I went to the closet and touched the emerald dress. The silk was cool under my fingertips. Enjoy the shopping spree, Vanessa, I whispered to the empty room. Because it's going to be the most expensive dress you ever wore. It's going to cost you everything. The bait was taken. The hook was set. Now, all I had to do was reel them in. The day of the gala arrived with a sky the color of bruised iron. It was raining, a cold, relentless drizzle that slicked the city streets. Inside the Wilmington mansion, however, the atmosphere was electric. I spent the morning in a state of suspended animation. It felt like the moments before a car crash, where time stretches out and you notice every tiny detail. The smell of the hairspray. The dust motes dancing in the light of the vanity mirror. The steady, rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I wasn't just nervous. I was grieving. It hit me around noon, while I was sitting in the solarium. I wasn't just about to destroy Grant. I was about to destroy the last 5 years of my life. I was about to publicly admit that my marriage was a sham, that the man I loved was a monster, and that I had been a fool. Eleanor found me staring out at the rain-lashed garden. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat down next to me, her presence grounding me like an anchor. You are mourning him, she said softly. It wasn't a question. I'm mourning the man I thought he was, I corrected, wiping a stray tear. I'm mourning the time I wasted. 5 years, Eleanor. I gave him my youth. I gave him my trust. I gave him my parents' legacy. And for what? So he could laugh about me with another woman? It is okay to grieve, Eleanor said. But do not mistake grief for weakness. You are allowed to be sad that your house burned down, Harper. But you do not stand in the ashes and let the fire consume you. You build a fortress on top of them. She reached out and took my hand. Let me tell you something about revenge. People think it is sweet. It is not. It is hard work. It is heavy. But it is necessary. Not to cause pain, but to restore balance. He took your dignity. Tonight, you take it back. Not because you hate him, but because you love yourself enough to demand payment. What if I can't do it? I whispered. What if I see him and I freeze? What if the old Harper comes back? The old Harper is gone, Eleanor said, her voice turning steel-hard. She died at that bus stop. You are a survivor. And survivors do what is necessary. She stood up. Now. Dry your eyes. Margaret has prepared a light lunch. Then we start hair and makeup. Tonight, you are not a victim. You are the storm. By 5 p.m., the transformation was complete. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in the dressing room. The emerald dress hugged every curve, the velvet shimmering under the lights. The slit up the leg was daring, aggressive. My hair was sleek, dark, and sharp. The diamonds around my neck felt cold and heavy, a physical reminder of the weight I was carrying. But it was the face that surprised me. The makeup artist had given me a smoky eye and a dark, blood-red lip. It wasn't a pretty look. It was a power look. It was a look that said, "Don't touch me unless you want to bleed." My God, Margaret whispered from the doorway. You look formidable. I feel terrified, I admitted. You don't look it, she assured me. You look like you own the place. Eleanor walked in, dressed in a silver gown that made her look like a majestic storm cloud. She held out a pair of long, black satin gloves. Put these on, she said. No fingerprints. We leave no trace of the old Harper tonight. As I pulled the gloves up my arms, a strange calm settled over me. It was the calm of the executioner. The decision was made. The blade was sharpened. We walked down the grand staircase together. Arthur was waiting at the bottom, looking dapper in his tuxedo. His eyes widened when he saw me, but he quickly recovered his professional mask. "Ladies," he said, opening the door. "The chariot awaits." The rain had stopped, leaving the world glistening and wet. As I stepped into the limousine, I took one last look at the sky. Somewhere in this city, Grant was putting on his tuxedo. He was probably checking his hair in the mirror, telling himself he was a king. He was probably pouring a drink, toasting to his cleverness. He had no idea that the sky wasn't clearing up. The storm was just getting into the car. "Let's go, Arthur," Eleanor said. "We have a rat to catch." The Grand Hotel was a fortress of light against the night. Spotlights swept the sky, and a red carpet spilled down the marble steps like a river of blood. Paparazzi lined the velvet ropes, their flashbulbs popping like strobe lights as the city's elite stepped out of Bentleys and Rolls-Royces. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat that threatened to drown out the classical music drifting from the ballroom. I gripped Eleanor's arm. "Breathe," she whispered, sensing my tension. "Lift your chin. Look at them like they are ants. Ants that owe you money." Arthur opened the door. The noise of the crowd surged in, voices, camera shutters, the hum of engines. I stepped out first, the cool air hitting my bare shoulders. I turned and helped Eleanor out, playing the dutiful, elegant granddaughter. The moment Eleanor Wilmington's foot touched the red carpet, a hush rippled through the nearest photographers, followed by a roar of recognition. "Mrs. Wilmington! Over here! Catherine! Who is the girl? Is that the heiress?" Eleanor smiled, a small, enigmatic curve of her lips. She leaned into me. "Walk," she commanded under her breath. "Do not rush." We glided down the carpet. I kept my face impassive, channeling every ounce of Alexandra I could muster. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just looked through the cameras, projecting an air of bored superiority. I saw the questions in the reporter's eyes. Who is she? Where did she come from? Look at those diamonds. We entered the ballroom. It was a cavern of gold leaf and crystal. Hundreds of people swirled around, holding champagne flutes, their laughter tinkling like broken glass. The smell of expensive perfume and roasted duck hung heavy in the air. And then I saw him. It was like a physical blow to the chest. Grant stood near the bar, holding a whiskey glass. He was wearing a tuxedo that I knew he had put on the credit card I paid for. His hair was gelled back. He was laughing at something a heavy-set man in a gray suit was saying, throwing his head back in that fake, boisterous laugh he used to charm clients. And next to him, clinging to his arm like a barnacle, was Vanessa. She was wearing the red Valentino dress. It was tight, plunging, and aggressive. She looked beautiful in a sharp, predatory way. She was scanning the room, her eyes hungry, looking for someone more important to talk to. I felt a surge of nausea, followed instantly by a cold, white-hot rage. Seeing them together, happy, oblivious, while I was supposed to be destitute, it solidified everything. "Do you see him?" Eleanor whispered. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "He's at the bar. With her. Good. Let's make our rounds. Let him see you from a distance first. Let him wonder." We moved through the crowd. Eleanor introduced me to senators, to CEOs, to old money matriarchs. "This is my grandniece, Alexandra," she said smoothly. "She's been managing our European interests. I'm finally bringing her home to take the reins." I played the part. I shook hands. I murmured polite nothings in a slightly lower register than my normal voice. "Charmed. Lovely to meet you. Yes, the market is volatile." I could feel Grant's eyes on me before I saw him look. It was a primal sense of being hunted. I glanced over my shoulder, just a flicker. Grant had stopped laughing. He was staring at me. His mouth was slightly open. He nudged Vanessa and pointed. I turned back to the senator I was speaking to, ignoring Grant completely. He's seen you, Eleanor noted with satisfaction. He's hooked. A few minutes later, I saw Grant straighten his tie. He whispered something to Vanessa, who looked annoyed but let go of his arm. He smoothed his jacket and began to make his way through the crowd toward us. He moved with that swagger I used to mistake for confidence but now recognized as insecurity masking itself. He was coming to hunt the heiress. He was coming to charm the billionaire's niece. Here he comes, I whispered to Eleanor. Perfect, she said. Remember, Harper. You are the spider. He is the fly. Do not scare him away. Invite him into the web. Grant stopped a few feet away, waiting for a break in our conversation. When the senator moved away, Grant stepped in, flashing his brightest, most practiced smile. The smile that had convinced me to marry him. The smile that had convinced me to sign away my house. Mrs. Wilmington, he said, bowing his head slightly. An honor to see you again. Grant Henderson, Henderson Motors. Eleanor turned her head slowly. Mr. Henderson. I recall you. You sent me a rather persistent stream of emails regarding an investment. Persistence is key in business, Grant chuckled, not sensing the chill in her tone. Then, he turned his eyes to me. There was no recognition. None. Just lust. Just calculation. He looked me up and down, lingering on the emerald dress, the diamonds, the exposed skin of my neck. And I don't believe we've met, he said, extending his hand. His voice dropped an octave, the bedroom voice he used when he wanted something. I'm Grant. I looked at his hand, the hand that had thrown my purse into the gutter. The hand that had pushed me onto the broken glass. I took it. It was warm and slightly damp. Alexandra, I said, meeting his eyes with a cool, detached gaze. Alexandra Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, Grant repeated, his eyes widening. He was doing the math in his head. Billions. A pleasure, Alexandra. I must say, you are the most stunning woman in this room. By far. He was hitting on his own wife. The wife he abandoned 3 days ago. Thank you, I said, pulling my hand away slowly. I'm afraid I don't know many people here. I've been away. Well, Grant said, stepping closer, invading my personal space. Allow me to be your guide. I know everyone who is anyone in this city. I smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. I would like that, Grant. Tell me, what brings a man like you to a party like this alone? The trap was open, and Grant walked right in, puffing out his chest like a peacock. Alone? Grant laughed, glancing quickly back toward the bar where Vanessa was now sulking over a martini. Oh, I'm here with a colleague. A business associate. But you know how it is. Sometimes business drags you down when you'd rather be enjoying the company of someone truly exceptional. He turned his back on Vanessa completely, focusing all his attention on me. It was nauseating. It was also exhilarating. I had him. A colleague, I echoed, arching an eyebrow. You seem like a man who keeps his business and pleasure separate, Grant. Or do you mix them? I'm a man of passion, Alexandra, he said, leaning in, smelling of whiskey and arrogance. When I see something I want, I go after it. Whether it's a deal or a connection. We moved toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. Eleanor had discreetly stepped away to speak with the host, leaving me alone with the wolf. Or so he thought. In reality, Eleanor was signaling the technical team. So, tell me about yourself, Grant, I said, sipping my champagne. You sell cars? I manage a premier automotive empire, he corrected, inflating his title. We're expanding. Aggressively. I'm actually looking for partners for a new venture. High-end imports. It's going to be massive. Sounds expensive, I said. Do you have the capital for that? Capital is never an issue, he waved a hand dismissively. I have assets. I have liquidity. I'm a self-made man, Alexandra. Everything I have, I built with my own two hands. Nobody gave me a dime. I gripped the stem of my glass so hard I thought it might snap. Self-made? You built it with my parents' house. You built it with my library wages. You built it by stealing from the woman who washed your underwear. That's impressive, I said, keeping my voice smooth as silk. I admire a man who doesn't rely on family handouts. Or a wife's money. Grant chuckled, taking a sip of his drink. A wife? Please. I'm in the middle of a divorce, actually. My heart stopped for a beat. Oh. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be, he said quickly. It was a mistake. A youthful indiscretion. She was, how do I put this delicately? She was unstable. Needy. She didn't understand ambition. She wanted me to stay small, stay in the suburbs, clip coupons. Can you imagine? Clip coupons? I asked, feigning horror. How dreadful. Exactly. I tried to elevate her. I tried to help her. But some people, they just want to be victims. She left a few days ago. Just vanished. Probably went back to her mother to cry. Honestly, it's a relief. I feel like a weight has been lifted. He was erasing me. He wasn't just lying, he was rewriting history to make himself the hero and me the anchor. So you're free? I asked, stepping a little closer, lowering my voice. Legally? Practically, he grinned. The paperwork is just a formality. I'm a free agent, Alexandra. And looking at you, I feel like my luck is finally turning. He reached out and touched my bare arm, his fingers trailing down from my shoulder to my elbow. My skin crawled. It took every ounce of willpower not to slap him right there. You have beautiful skin, he murmured. You know, you remind me of someone. But better. More refined. More alive. He was comparing me to me. And telling me the new version was better because it was wrapped in money. Grant, I said, looking him dead in the eye. You seem like a man who takes risks. Are you a gambler? Life is a gamble, he said. I always bet on myself. And do you always win? Always, he said, his eyes darkening with lust. So, Alexandra. What do you say we get out of here? This party is stiff. I know a private club downtown. Or, I have a condo in the marina. The view is spectacular. The condo my inheritance bought. That sounds tempting, I said. But I think my aunt has a presentation to make first. She wanted me to watch it. Something about charity? Helping the less fortunate? Grant rolled his eyes. Charity. Boring. But for you, I'll wait. After the presentation, just you and me? Just you and me, I promised. And the truth. I love the truth, he lied. At that moment, the lights in the ballroom dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Eleanor was standing at the podium, looking like a silver deity. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice boomed over the speakers. Thank you for coming. Tonight, we celebrate generosity. But we also need to talk about the opposite of generosity. We need to talk about greed. About cruelty. About what happens when we lose our humanity. Grant stood beside me, shifting his weight, bored. He leaned close to my ear. 5 minutes, he whispered. Then we leave. Oh, Grant, I whispered back, my eyes fixed on the giant screen behind Eleanor. You're not going anywhere. Why? He asked, confused. Because, I said, you're the star of the show. Grant frowned. What? On the screen, the logo of the Wilmington Foundation faded. And in its place, a grainy, high-contrast video feed appeared. It was a dashcam view. The hood of a white Mercedes sedan. The timestamp was Tuesday, 5:43 p.m. Grant froze. His hand dropped from my arm. Wait, he muttered. That's my car. Watch, I commanded. The ballroom fell silent. The clinking of glasses stopped. The murmur of conversation died. All eyes were glued to the massive screen suspended above the stage. The video was clear. The car was moving through dilapidated streets. The GPS coordinates in the corner of the screen identified the location, the Bottoms. On the audio, clear as day, Grant's voice filled the room. Stop crying, Harper. God, you are pathetic. It's $80. Do you know how hard I work? Do you? My voice, small and trembling, replied from the passenger seat. I'm sorry, Grant. Please. Where are we going? This isn't the way to Mom's. We aren't going to your mom's. We're going to school. The school of hard knocks. In the ballroom, a ripple of unease went through the crowd. People were exchanging glances. Grant stood beside me, paralyzed. His face had drained of all color. He looked like a wax figure. What the hell? He whispered. How? On the screen, the car pulled over to the curb. The view showed the desolate street, the boarded-up windows, the solitary, flickering streetlight. Get out, Grant's voice commanded. What? Grant, please. It's dark. It's dangerous. Get out. The sound of the door opening. The sound of a struggle. Then, the view of a purse, my purse, being thrown onto the sidewalk. My phone! Grant, let me have my phone. No. Consider this a lesson in economics. Maybe when you walk home, you'll learn the value of $1. Figure it out, Harper. Or don't. The door slammed. The car engine revved. The vehicle peeled away, leaving a lone figure standing on the curb, shrinking in the rearview mirror. The video cut to black. Then, a new image appeared. A spreadsheet. Detailed. Forensic. Henderson Motors, fraudulent disbursements. Loan proceeds, secured by Harper Henderson's property $150,000 transfer to V-Stone Properties, $148,000 Tiffany & Co., $4 200 Ritz-Carlton Suite, $1,800. Then, a split screen. On the left, a photo of the deed to the condo in the marina, listed under Vanessa Stone. On the right, a text message thread retrieved from Grant's company phone. Grant just dumped the dead weight. She's stranded in the Bottoms. Hopefully, she gets scared straight. Or gets lost for good. Either way, tonight is ours, babe. Vanessa, you're bad. LOL. Coming over? The silence in the ballroom was absolute. It was a vacuum. You could hear a pin drop. Grant was trembling. Visibly shaking. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. He looked at the screen, then at the crowd, then at me. This is fake, he stammered, his voice loud in the quiet room. This is AI. It's a deep fake. Someone is trying to frame me. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Alexandra, you have to believe me. This is I have enemies. Competitors. They faked this. I looked at him. I didn't say a word. I just stared. Eleanor's voice cut through the air like a gavel. It is not a fake, Mr. Henderson, she said from the stage. The video was authenticated by forensic experts. The financial records were pulled from your own servers by court order. She pointed a finger at him. A spotlight swung from the stage, blindingly bright, and pinned Grant to the floor. He threw his hands up to shield his eyes. The man standing right there, Eleanor announced, her voice filled with righteous fury. The man who just tried to charm my granddaughter. That is Grant Henderson. A man who steals his wife's inheritance to buy his mistress a condo. A man who abandons a woman in the slums to teach her a lesson. The crowd turned. Hundreds of faces, previously indifferent or polite, twisted into expressions of disgust. I heard whispers. Is that him? What a scumbag. Abandoned her? In the bottoms? And he brought the mistress here? Grant looked around, panic setting in. He saw Vanessa near the bar. She was trying to back away, trying to disappear into the crowd, her face pale. Vanessa! Grant yelled, pointing at her. Tell them. Tell them it's a lie. Vanessa froze as people backed away from her, leaving her isolated in her red dress like a scarlet letter. She shook her head frantically. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just an employee. You liar! Grant screamed, losing control. You helped me set up the LLC. Security, Eleanor said calmly into the microphone. Please ensure Mr. Henderson does not leave. We have one more introduction to make. Grant turned back to me. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in just like they had on our anniversary. Alexandra, he begged, desperation making him frantic. Please. You have pull here. Your aunt, tell her to stop. Help me. I can explain. We had a connection, right? You and me? I looked down at his hand on my arm. The same hand that had hurt me. I slowly reached up and peeled his fingers off me, one by one. I didn't struggle. I didn't flinch. I just removed him like he was a piece of lint. We don't have a connection, Grant, I said. My voice was low, but in the silence of the room, everyone nearby heard it. What? He breathed. I reached up to my neck. I unclasped the heavy diamond necklace. I held it in my hand for a moment, weighing it. You said I reminded you of someone, I said. Someone better. More refined. I stepped closer, until I was inches from his sweating face. Look closer, Grant. Grant stared at me. He looked at my eyes, the only part of me that hadn't really changed, despite the makeup. He looked at the shape of my jaw. Confusion warred with denial in his expression. Who are you? He whispered. You really don't know? I asked, raising my voice so it carried. You lived with me for 5 years. You slept in the same bed. You ate the food I cooked. And you don't recognize me because I'm wearing a dress you didn't pay for? I reached up and wiped the dark lipstick from my mouth with the back of my hand, smearing it. I ran my fingers through my sleek hair, messing it up, shaking out the stiffness. Harper? The word fell out of his mouth like a stone. Harper, he repeated, louder this time, his voice cracking. But, no. You're Alexandra. You're the heiress. I'm the wife you threw out of the car, I said. My voice rang out clear and strong. I'm the dead weight. I'm the coupon clipper. I'm the woman you left to die in the dark so you could come here and play big shot with your mistress. The crowd gasped. A collective intake of breath that sucked the air out of the room. Grant stumbled back as if I had physically hit him. No, he stammered. No, that's impossible. Harper is, she's a nobody. You look. I look like money? I finished for him. Is that it, Grant? You only respect what looks expensive? You couldn't see my value when I was taking care of your home, but put me in diamonds and suddenly I'm a prize? Harper, wait, Grant tried to switch gears, his manipulator brain scrambling to find a foothold. He put on a sick, twisted smile. Honey. Babe. Look at you. You look amazing. I knew you had it in you. This was a test. Don't you see? He looked around at the crowd, spreading his hands. Everyone. This is my wife. Isn't she incredible? I knew she needed a push. I did it to motivate her. It was tough love. And look. It worked. She's a star. The audacity was breathtaking. He was trying to claim credit for my transformation. He was trying to spin his abuse into a coaching strategy. Tough love? I stepped forward, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Is stealing my mother's medical money tough love? Is forging my signature on a loan tough love? Is sleeping with your boss while I scrub your floors tough love? Now, Harper, let's not air our dirty laundry. Grant said, backing away, sweat pouring down his face. You aired it when you put me on the street. I yelled, letting the anger finally erupt. You wanted a lesson? Here is your lesson, Grant. I pointed to the screen where the fraud documents were still displayed. I know about the embezzlement. I know about the condo. I know about V-Stone Properties. And guess what? So does the district attorney. Eleanor sent the file over an hour ago. Grant's knees buckled. He looked toward the exit, but security guards blocked the doors. He looked toward Vanessa. Vanessa, realizing the ship was sinking, made her move. She marched over to Grant, her face twisted in fury. You told me you were separated, she screamed, playing the victim. You told me the money was yours. You dragged me into this. Ness, baby, don't. Grant pleaded. Thwack. Vanessa slapped him. It was a solid, loud slap that echoed in the ballroom. Don't call me baby. You liar. You fraud. I'm ruined because of you. She turned and ran toward the side exit, sobbing theatrically, though nobody moved to comfort her. Grant stood alone. His cheek was red. His tuxedo looked cheap. He looked small. Harper, he whimpered. Please. We can fix this. I'm sorry. I messed up. But we're a team, right? You and me? We can beat this. Just tell them it's a joke. Tell them we're acting. Please. I love you. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had controlled my life for 5 years. The monster under my bed. And suddenly, he wasn't a monster anymore. He was just a pathetic, greedy little man. You don't love me, Grant, I said calmly. You love owning me. And you don't own me anymore. I turned to the crowd. To the cameras that were now zooming in on my face. My name is Harper Henderson, I announced. And I am done being a victim. Then, I turned back to Grant. The room was spinning with adrenaline. This was it. The moment I had dreamed of on the bus stop bench. But before the final blow, before the police took him away, I needed to do one more thing. I looked directly into the lens of the nearest news camera, the one broadcasting live. I took a deep breath. The red light on the camera was steady, unblinking. I knew thousands of people were watching this drama unfold on the news, on live streams, maybe even Grant's mother sitting at home. I stepped closer to the lens, breaking the fourth wall of the moment. To everyone watching, I said, my voice shaking slightly but gaining strength. To every woman who has ever been told she's crazy. To everyone who has been made to feel small by someone who promised to love them. You are seeing this, right? You are seeing the truth come out. I paused, looking deep into the lens, connecting with every soul on the other side of the screen. If you are still watching this, if you are seeing a man finally face the consequences of his cruelty, do something for me. Like this video and comment the number 1 below. Let me know that I am not alone. Let me know that you are standing with me, right now, in this ballroom. Your support is the armor I need to finish this. Comment 1 if you want to see justice served. Because I am about to deliver the final blow, and I want you to be part of it. I held the gaze for a second longer, feeling the invisible wave of support, imagining the 1S scrolling down a screen somewhere. Now, I said, turning back to Grant. Listen closely. Grant was sobbing now. Ugly, snotty sobs. Harper, please. I'll lose everything. The dealership. The house. My reputation. You lost your reputation when you opened your mouth, I said. But you're right about the rest. You are going to lose everything. But not because of the police. The police will handle the fraud. That takes time. Courts are slow. I signaled to Eleanor on the stage. She nodded and pressed a button. The screen changed again. This time, it showed a legal document. A purchase agreement. Buyer, Wilmington Industries. Asset acquired, Henderson Motors Debt and Equity. Do you recognize that, Grant? I asked. Grant squinted through his tears. What is that? You leveraged the dealership to the hilt, I explained, using the financial terms I had learned over the last 3 days. You borrowed money from hard money lenders when the bank cut you off. High interest, predatory loans. You thought you could pay them back after you charmed an investor tonight. How do you know that? He whispered. Because Eleanor bought the debt, I said. This morning. Wilmington Industries bought every single promissory note, every lien, every IOU you signed. Grant's eyes went wide. No. No, she can't. She can. And she did. Which means, Grant, that Wilmington Industries is now your primary creditor. And since you are in default on payments, Eleanor is calling in the loan. Immediately. I can't pay, Grant stammered. I don't have the cash. We know, I smiled. Which is why we are exercising the foreclosure clause. As of 5 p.m. today, Henderson Motors belongs to Wilmington Industries. You are trespassing on company property by wearing that pin on your lapel. I reached out and plucked the Henderson Motors pin from his jacket. You're fired, Grant. The crowd erupted. Applause. Actual applause broke out in the room. It started with a few people and swelled into a roar. Grant looked around, stunned. His empire, his identity, gone in seconds. But, the house, he grasped at straws. I still have the house. Actually, Patricia, the lawyer, stepped forward from the crowd, holding a folder. Since the house was used as collateral for a fraudulent loan, and Mrs. Henderson has proven she signed under duress and false pretenses, we have filed an emergency injunction. The condo in the marina has been seized. And your personal assets, your car, your watch, your bank accounts, are frozen pending the investigation into the theft of Mrs. Henderson's inheritance. You have nothing, I said, leaning in one last time. You have no job. No company. No girlfriend. No house. And no wife. Grant fell to his knees. It wasn't a metaphorical fall. His legs simply gave out. He knelt on the marble floor, surrounded by the elite he so desperately wanted to join, looking up at me. "Harper," he croaked. "How am I supposed to live?" I looked down at him. I remembered the bus stop. I remembered the cold wind. "Figure it out, Grant," I said, echoing his exact words. "Consider it a lesson in economics." "Security!" Eleanor called out. "Please remove this trespasser from the premises." Two burly guards hoisted Grant up by his armpits. He was weeping, begging, snot running down his face. As they dragged him toward the doors, he looked back at me one last time. "I made you," he screamed. "You're nothing without me." "I'm everything without you," I replied. The doors closed behind him. The music started up again. The nightmare was over. I turned to Eleanor. She was beaming. She held out her arms. I walked into them and hugged her, burying my face in her silver gown. "We did it," I whispered. "No, my dear," Eleanor whispered back. "You did it. I just bought the tickets. You put on the show." The police arrested Grant in the parking lot of the hotel. We saw the blue lights flashing through the windows. But my work wasn't quite done. There was one more head of the Hydra that needed to be cut off. Beatrice. The next morning, the story was everywhere. Heiress reveal, local businessmen arrested for fraud at charity gala. The video of Grant being dragged out was viral. I was sitting in the solarium, drinking coffee that tasted like freedom, when my phone rang. It was my old number. I had turned it back on. Mother-in-law calling. I looked at Eleanor. "She's calling." "Answer it on speaker," Eleanor said. "Let's hear the squealing." I swiped green. "Hello, Beatrice." "Harper." Beatrice's voice was a shriek. "What have you done? Have you lost your mind? The police are here. They're taking the computers. Grant is in jail. You have to stop this. You have to tell them it's a mistake." "It's not a mistake, Beatrice," I said calmly. "It's justice." "Justice? You ungrateful little witch. After everything we did for you? We gave you a family. We took you in." "You took me in to rob me," I corrected. "I know about the loan, Beatrice. I know you co-signed the documents for V-Stone Properties. Patricia found your signature on the LLC formation papers. You knew he was stealing my money. You knew about the mistress. You probably helped him pick out the condo." There was a silence on the other end. A guilty, heavy silence. I did what was best for my son," she sputtered. "He deserved better than a librarian. He needed resources. And you were just sitting on that house. It was selfish." "Selfish," I laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "Well, Beatrice, I hope you're ready to be selfless. Because since you are a partner in the LLC, you are liable for the debts too." "What?" Her voice cracked. "The money Grant stole? It has to be paid back. And since Grant is bankrupt, the creditors, aka me and Wilmington Industries, are coming after the other partners. That means you." "You can't," she whispered. "My house, my pension." "We filed the lien this morning," I said. "You're going to lose the house, Beatrice. The one with the porcelain dolls. You're going to have to sell it to pay back what your son stole from me." "You wouldn't," she cried. "I'm an old woman. Where will I go?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe you can go to the Bottoms. I hear the rent is cheap there. And hey, maybe you'll learn the value of $1. Harper, please. I'm family." "No," I said. You're an accomplice. I hung up. I blocked the number. I sat back in the chair and let out a long breath. It was done. The toxicity that had poisoned my life for 5 years was finally, completely excised. Eleanor reached over and poured me more coffee. How does it feel? It feels, I said, thinking about it, like I can finally breathe. Good, Eleanor said. Because now that the trash is taken out, we have work to do. You don't think I'm going to let a talent like yours go back to stacking books, do you? I looked at her. What do you mean? The Wilmington Foundation needs a new director for its women's outreach program. Someone who understands what it's like to be powerless and has the fire to change it. I think you are overqualified. I smiled. A real smile this time. Not Alexandra's smile. Harper's smile. I'd love that. 3 months passed. The fall of Grant Henderson was swift and brutal. Because the evidence was so overwhelming, the video, the financial records, the confession from Vanessa, who turned state's witness to avoid jail time, he didn't even get bail. He sat in county jail, awaiting trial. I went to see him once. Just once. I stood on the other side of the glass partition. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His hair was thinning. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by a nervous twitch. He picked up the phone. Harper. You came. I came to sign the divorce papers, I said, sliding the folder through the slot. Sign them, Grant. Uncontested. He looked at the papers. If I sign, will you drop the civil suit? Beatrice, she's living in a motel. It's killing her. I can't control the consequences of your actions, Grant, I said. Sign the papers. Or I testify at your sentencing hearing and ask for the maximum. He signed. His hand shook. I miss you, he whispered, trying one last manipulation. I miss us. You miss the money, I said. Goodbye, Grant. I walked out of the jail and into the sunshine. Beatrice did lose her house. Eleanor's lawyers were ruthless. The proceeds from the sale went to pay off the fraudulent loan, which meant I got my parents' house back, free and clear. Beatrice moved into a small, run-down apartment complex on the edge of town, not quite the bottoms, but close enough to humble her. Vanessa lost her job and was blacklisted from every reputable company in the city. Last I heard, she was working as a hostess at a dive bar, trying to find another rich man to leech off of. Good luck with that. As for me? I moved out of the house I shared with Grant. I sold it. I didn't want the memories. I used the money to renovate my parents' house, turning it into a sanctuary. I started my job at the Wilmington Foundation. It was hard work. I met women every day who were where I had been, scared, broke, controlled by men who claimed to love them. And I helped them. I gave them resources. I gave them lawyers. I gave them hope. Eleanor and I became inseparable. She wasn't just my boss, she was the grandmother I never had. We had dinner every Sunday. She taught me how to run a business, how to read a contract, and how to trust my instincts. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 year after the incident, I was driving home. I was driving a new car, a sensible SUV that I bought with my own money. I passed the intersection. The intersection leading to the bottoms. I hesitated. Then, I turned the wheel. I drove slowly down the familiar, broken street. It hadn't changed much. The warehouses were still abandoned. The liquor store still had bars on the windows. I pulled up to the bus stop. The bench was there. The graffiti had been painted over, but new tags had already appeared. And there, sitting on the bench, huddled under a thin coat, was a young woman. She was crying. A suitcase sat next to her. It was like looking in a mirror. I pulled the car over. I put it in park. I took a deep breath. I rolled down the passenger window. "Excuse me?" I called out. The girl looked up. She was young, maybe 22. Mascara ran down her cheeks. She looked terrified. "Do you need help?" I asked. I'm waiting for a bus," she lied, her voice trembling. "The bus doesn't run here after 6, I said gently. "Did someone drop you off?" She nodded, a fresh wave of tears spilling over. "My boyfriend. We got in a fight. He said I needed to walk home to learn a lesson." My heart broke and healed all at once. The cycle. It was always the same cycle. Men using fear to control. "What's your name?" I asked. "Mia," she sniffled. "Mia, I'm Harper," I said. "I know exactly how you feel. Because a year ago, I was sitting right there." Her eyes widened. "Really? Really?" And a woman stopped for me. She changed my life. Now, I want to do the same for you. I unlocked the doors. "Get in, Mia. It's cold." She hesitated, looking at me, then at the dark street. "I promise," I said. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to take you somewhere safe. And tomorrow, we're going to get you a lawyer." Mia stood up. She grabbed her suitcase. She walked to the car and climbed in. As we drove away, leaving the bottoms behind in the rearview mirror, I looked at her. "You're safe now," I said. Mia smiled through her tears. "Thank you." Why are you doing this?" I smiled, thinking of Eleanor. Thinking of the emerald dress. Thinking of the woman who walked out of the fire. "Because," I said, "sometimes, the worst day of your life is actually the first day of your new life. You just need a ride to get there." And so, as Harper drove away from the bottoms, a powerful truth emerged from her journey, a reminder to us all that even in the darkest moments, there is hope. Her story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of self-worth. It teaches us that no matter how broken or lost we may feel, we have the strength to rise, reclaim our dignity, and rebuild our lives. This tale also reminds us of the importance of kindness and the life-changing impact of lending a hand to someone in need. Eleanor's act of compassion created a ripple effect, proving that one small gesture can ignite a revolution in another person's life. Harper's courage to stand up for herself not only brought her justice but also gave her the power to help others find their own strength. What about you? What lesson did this story leave you with? Share your thoughts below or simply comment good if you believe in the power of resilience and kindness. Let's inspire each other to be the change we wish to see in the world.